The locker slammed shut, the metallic clang echoing like a gunshot through the crowded hallway of Jefferson High. Eli Carter stood frozen, his heart pounding as laughter erupted around him, sharp and cruel, cutting deeper than the bruise blooming on his cheek. He was 17, and today, like too many days before, the word faggot had been hurled at him like a stone. What does it feel like to walk through a hallway where every glance feels like a judgment? How does a single word, spat with venom, ripple through a person's soul? Eli didn't have answers, only the weight of eyes on him as he adjusted his backpack and started walking. His sneakers squeaked against the polished floor, each step a silent plea to disappear. He wasn't invisible, though not today. Not after what happened in the cafeteria. It had started with a tray of food. Eli sat alone, as usual, sketching in his notebook, when Tyler Grayson and his pack of football jocks swaggered over. Tyler, broad-shouldered and smirking, had leaned in close, his breath hot with the scent of cheap soda. "What's this, Carter? Drawing your boyfriend?" The table roared. Eli's pencil froze midline. He could have ignored it, could have stayed quiet like always, but something snapped. "Leave me alone," he'd said, voice low but steady. That's when Tyler's fist met his face. Why does courage sometimes feel like a punishment? What makes a moment tip from silence to defiance? Eli didn't know, but as he walked away from the cafeteria, blood trickling from his lip, he felt the weight of every stare. The whispers followed him, some gleeful, some shocked swells with pity. He didn't stop to look back. He didn't need to. He knew they were watching. By the time he reached his locker, the bell had rung, and the hallway was a chaotic stream of students rushing to their next class. Eli leaned against the cold metal, his fingers trembling as he pulled out his notebook. The sketch, a half-finished portrait of a boy with kind eyes, stared back at him. His name was Jamie, a senior who'd moved to town last year. They'd met in art club, where Jamie's easy smile and gentle questions about Eli's drawings had felt like sunlight after a long winter. But Jamie didn't know, not yet. Eli hadn't found the words to tell him. What does it mean to love someone who might not love you back? How do you carry a secret that feels like both a treasure and a burden? Eli tucked the notebook away, his chest tight. He didn't cry, not here. Not now. Instead, he pulled out a piece of paper and started writing. His pen moved fast, the words pouring out like a dam breaking. He didn't know why he was doing this, only that he couldn't keep it inside anymore. When he finished, he folded the note carefully and slipped it into his pocket. He'd leave it somewhere public, somewhere it would be found. The rest of the day passed in a blur. In English class, MS. Harper droned on about The Great Gatsby, but Eli's mind was elsewhere. He kept stealing glances at Jamie, who sat 2 rows over, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he scribbled notes. Jamie caught his gaze once and smiled, a small, private thing that made Eli's heart lurch. What would Jamie think if he knew? Would he laugh, too? Eli pushed the thought away. After school, he lingered by the bleachers, watching the football team practice. Tyler was out there, tossing passes with effortless confidence, the king of Jefferson High. Eli's fingers brushed the note in his pocket. It wasn't just a letter, it was a piece of his soul, raw and exposed. He thought about the words he'd written, the truth he'd never spoken aloud. Was he brave enough to leave it behind? What happens when you stop hiding who you are? As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Eli made his decision. He walked to the school's main bulletin board, where flyers for prom and chess club fluttered in the breeze. He pinned the note to the center, his hand steady now. Then he turned and walked away, his silhouette fading into the dusk. The next morning, Jefferson High buzzed with something new. Eli felt at the moment he stepped into the hallway a shift in the air, like the calm before a storm. The note was gone from the bulletin board, but its absence screamed louder than its presence. What does it mean when silence becomes a shout? How does a single piece of paper change the rhythm of a school? Eli didn't know, but he could feel the weight of it as he moved through the crowd. Eyes followed him, not with the usual mockery, but with something else: curiosity, maybe, or unease. He kept his head down, his heart racing. Had someone read it? Who? In the cafeteria, he spotted Jamie at their usual table, but something was different. Jamie's eyes were red, his jaw tight. He didn't look up as Eli approached. "Hey," Eli said softly, sliding into the seat across from him. Jamie nodded, barely meeting his gaze. What had changed? Had the note reached him already? "Something's going around," Jamie said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "People are talking about a letter. Something about you." Eli's stomach dropped. He hadn't expected it to spread this fast. What does it feel like to be exposed, raw and vulnerable, in front of everyone you know? He wanted to ask Jamie what he'd heard, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he pulled out his sketchbook and flipped to a new page. His pencil moved on instinct, tracing the outline of Jamie's face, the curve of his jaw, the way his hair caught the light. "You okay?" Eli asked, his voice barely audible. Jamie's eyes flicked up, searching Eli's face. "You tell me," he said. "What does it mean when someone you care about looks at you like they're seeing you for the first time?" By lunchtime, the whispers had grown louder. A group of girls huddled near the vending machines, their heads bent over a phone. One of them glanced at Eli, her expression unreadable. He caught fragments of their conversation, didn't know he was, and that kind of brave. Right. Brave. The word felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. In art club that afternoon, the tension was palpable. Tyler and his crew were absent, but their absence only made the room feel heavier. Jamie sat next to Eli, closer than usual, his knee brushing against Eli's under the table. "I read it," Jamie said suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. Eli froze, his charcoal pencil snapping in his hand. "What do you say when the truth you've hidden is laid bare? How do you face the person you've written your heart to?" "I didn't know," Jamie continued, his eyes locked on the table. "All this time, you were going through that, and I didn't see it." Eli's chest ached. He wanted to explain, to apologize, but Jamie kept going. "You're stronger than I ever realized." The words hit like a wave, warm and overwhelming. Eli didn't trust himself to speak. After school, Eli found himself back at the bleachers, watching the world move on without him. The note had spread like wildfire, shared, debated, dissected. Some called it a cry for help. Others called it a stunt. But to Eli, it was just the truth. He was gay. He was tired of hiding. And he was done letting Tyler's fists define him. What happens when you stop running from yourself? Does the world change? Or do you? As he sat there, Jamie appeared, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He didn't say anything at first, just sat down next to Eli, their shoulders touching. The silence between them was heavy but not uncomfortable. "I'm proud of you," Jamie said finally, his voice steady. Eli's throat tightened. What does it mean to be seen? Truly seen. For the first time. The school was a pressure cooker by the end of the week. Eli's note had become more than a piece of paper. It was a spark, igniting conversations he never expected. In the hallways, students whispered, some with sympathy, others with scorn, but none of them could ignore it. What does it mean to start a fire you can't control? How do you carry the weight of a truth that reshapes the world around you? Eli felt the heat of it every time he walked into a room. People stared, some openly, others sneaking glances. He wasn't invisible anymore, and that was both a relief and a burden. In English class, MS, Harper pulled him aside. Eli, I read your note, she said, her voice gentle but firm. It took guts to do that. Are you okay? Her concern caught him off guard. He nodded, unsure how to explain the storm inside him. What does it feel like to be cared for when you're used to being unseen? At lunch, Jamie was quieter than usual, picking at his food. They're talking about a school assembly, he said, breaking the silence. Something about bullying. Your note. It's making waves. Eli's heart sank. Had he gone too far? Would this change anything? Or just make things worse? He glanced at Jamie, searching for answers in his expression. But Jamie just reached for his hand under the table, a fleeting touch that set Eli's skin on fire. That afternoon, Tyler cornered him in the bathroom. You think you're some kind of hero now? He sneered, his voice low and dangerous. Eli stood his ground, his fists clenched. I'm just done hiding, he said, his voice steady. Tyler's eyes narrowed, but for the first time, he backed off. What does it mean when a bully hesitates? Is it victory, or just a pause? In art club, the mood was different, less tense, more open. A girl named Sarah, usually quiet, approached Eli with a shy smile. I didn't know you were going through that, she said. I'm sorry. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. Eli mumbled a thank you, his throat tight. How does it feel to be apologized to for pain you never shared? Later, Jamie walked him home. The streets of their small town were quiet, the air crisp with the promise of fall. You didn't have to do it. You know, Jamie said, kicking a pebble down the sidewalk. But I'm glad you did. Eli stopped walking, his heart pounding. Why? He asked, barely breathing. Jamie's eyes met his, soft and certain. Because it's you. The real you. What does it mean to be loved for the truth you were afraid to tell? As they reached Eli's house, Jamie lingered, his hands stuffed in his pockets. Can we talk tomorrow? He asked. Eli nodded, his chest tight with hope and fear. The world was shifting, and he wasn't sure where it would land. The assembly was announced on Friday, a mandatory gathering in the gym. Eli's stomach churned as he filed in with the rest of the school, the bleachers packed with restless students. The note had done this, his words, his truth, now echoing through the entire school. What does it mean to stand in a room full of people who know your deepest secret? How do you face a crowd that might not understand? Eli sat next to Jamie, his knee bouncing nervously. Jamie's hand brushed against his, a quiet anchor in the storm. Principal Nguyen took the stage, her voice steady but heavy. We're here to talk about respect, she began. About the kind of school we want to be. She didn't mention Eli's name, but everyone knew. The room buzzed with whispers, and Eli felt the weight of every glance. Was this a mistake? Would this change anything? Ms. Harper spoke next, her words sharp and clear. Bullying isn't just a prank. It's a choice to hurt someone. And it stops now. Eli's breath caught. He hadn't expected this teacher's taking his side, calling out the cruelty he'd endured for years. What does it feel like when the world starts to shift in your favor? Tyler stood up in the middle of the assembly, his face red. This is bullshit, he shouted, storming out. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Eli's heart raced. Was Tyler's anger a sign of defeat, or something worse? Jamie leaned in, whispering, he's scared. You did that. Eli didn't know how to respond, but Jamie's words felt like a lifeline. After the assembly, a small group of students approached Eli. We didn't know, one of them said, a junior named Marcus. We should have said something sooner. Eli nodded, his voice trapped in his throat. How do you accept apologies for years of silence? What does it mean to be seen after so long? That evening, Jamie invited Eli to his house. They sat on his bedroom floor, surrounded by comic books and half-empty soda cans. I meant what I said, Jamie told him, his voice soft but firm. I'm proud of you. Eli's eyes burned. He wanted to tell Jamie everything, how he'd loved him quietly for months, how the note was as much for him as it was for the school. But the words wouldn't come. What does it take to bridge the gap between fear and hope? As the night grew darker, Jamie reached for Eli's hand, holding it this time. You're not alone anymore, he said. Eli's heart cracked open, raw and alive. The world wasn't perfect, but for the first time, it felt possible. The weekend was quiet, but Eli's mind was anything but. He spent hours rereading the note, now safely tucked away in his drawer. Those words, his confession. His pain had changed everything. What does it mean to rewrite your own story? How do you live with the consequences of being seen? Eli didn't have answers, but the weight of his truth felt lighter now, like a burden shared. On Monday, he walked into school with his head a little higher, his steps a little surer. The hallways were different now. Some students avoided his gaze, but others offered small nods, even smiles. Sarah from art club stopped him by his locker. You're kind of famous now, she said, grinning. Eli laughed, a rare sound that felt foreign on his lips. What does it feel like to be known? Not as a victim, but as a person. In the cafeteria, Jamie was waiting for him, his usual table now a shared space. You okay with all this? Jamie asked, gesturing to the crowded room. Eli shrugged, his heart full. It's weird, he admitted. But I'm not scared anymore. Jamie's smile was brighter than the sun. What does it mean when someone's smile feels like home? During art club, MS, Harper announced a new project, a mural about acceptance. Eli's heart skipped a beat. I want you to lead it, she told him. Him, the kid who'd always hidden in the shadows. Why do some moments feel like a second chance? How do you step into a role you never imagined? After school, Eli and Jamie walked to the park, the autumn leaves crunching under their feet. They sat on a bench, the same one where Eli had once sat alone, sketching Jamie's face in secret. I keep thinking about your note, Jamie said, his voice soft. You wrote about me, didn't you? Eli's breath hitched. He nodded, unable to speak. What do you do when the person you love knows the truth? Jamie reached for his hand, his fingers warm and steady. I'm not going anywhere, he said. Eli's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time, they weren't from pain. The world was still messy, still uncertain, but this moment, this connection was enough. The mural project became Eli's lifeline. Every afternoon, he and a small group of students gathered in the art room, sketching ideas and mixing paint. The theme acceptance felt like a mirror to his own journey, raw and real. What does it mean to create something bigger than yourself? How does art become a voice for the voiceless? Eli poured himself into the work, his brushstrokes bold and deliberate. The mural took shape on the wall outside the gym, a vibrant collage of faces, hands reaching out, colors blending into a story of hope. Jamie was there every day, painting beside him. Their shoulders brushed as they worked, a quiet intimacy that made Eli's heart race. You're good at this, Jamie said, nodding at Eli's sketch of two hands clasped together. Eli blushed, his confidence growing. What does it feel like to be admired for who you are? The school was changing, slowly but surely. The assembly had sparked some Thinga policy review, a new anti-bullying campaign. Even Tyler seemed quieter, his usual swagger dimmed. Eli overheard him arguing with his friends in the hallway, his voice strained. It's not worth it, Tyler muttered, walking away. What does it mean when a bully starts to break? Is it justice? or just a crack in the armor. One evening, Jamie invited Eli to a local diner. They sat in a corner booth, sharing fries and trading stories. I was scared. You know, Jamie admitted, his eyes locked on Eli. When I read your note, I didn't know what to say. Eli's heart pounded. And now? He asked, barely breathing. Jamie smiled, soft and sure. Now I know I want to be here. With you. What does it mean to be chosen? As they walked home under the stars, Eli felt lighter, like the world was finally making room for him. The note had been a risk, a leap into the unknown, but it had brought him here to this moment. This boy, this hope. The mural was nearly finished, a burst of color and meaning that stopped students in their tracks. Eli stood back, paint smudged on his cheek, watching his classmates take it in. For the first time, he felt proud not just of the art, but of himself. What does it mean to leave a mark on the world? How do you measure the impact of your truth? Eli didn't have all the answers, but the mural was proof that his voice mattered. Kids he'd never spoken to before stopped to talk, their words clumsy but kind. It's really cool, Marcus said, his eyes wide. Eli smiled, his heart full. Jamie was different now, too more open, more present. They spent hours together, talking about everything and nothing. One night, under the bleachers, Jamie kissed him. It was soft, tentative, but it set Eli's world on fire. What does it feel like to be loved in return? How do you hold on to something so fragile and real? The school held another assembly, this time to unveil the mural. Principal Nguyen spoke about change, about building a community where everyone belongs. Eli stood in the back, his hand in Jamie's, his chest tight with emotion. Tyler was there, too, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. What does it mean when the past starts to fade? Is it forgiveness, or something else? After the ceremony, Eli found a new note in his locker. It was from Sarah, a simple message, "You're not alone." He tucked it away, his eyes stinging. The world wasn't perfect, but it was getting better one note, one moment, one heart at a time. The final day of the mural project was a celebration. The school gathered outside, the air buzzing with excitement. Eli stood in front of the mural, his heart pounding as Principal Nguyen cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered, and Jamie squeezed his hand, his smile brighter than the sun. What does it mean to be part of something bigger? How does it feel to know your pain has built something beautiful? Eli looked at the mural, his mural, and felt the weight of his journey lift. The faces, the hands, the colors, they told a story of resilience, of hope, of love. Tyler approached him later, his usual confidence gone. "I didn't get it," he said, his voice low. "I'm sorry." The words were clumsy, but they were real. Eli nodded, unsure what to say. What does it mean to forgive someone who hurt you? Is it freedom, or just a step forward? That night, Eli and Jamie sat on the roof of Jamie's house, staring at the stars. "You changed everything," Jamie said, his voice soft. "You made us better." Eli's throat tightened. He didn't have words, so he leaned into Jamie, their shoulders pressed together. The note had been a spark, a risk, a truth, and it had led him here. As they sat there, wrapped in the quiet of the night, Eli realized something. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. The world was still messy, still imperfect, but it was his. And that was enough.